For now, right now, What's on Tap is brought to you by Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the NFL. Let's take a look at the matchups with the highest point totals. Sundays are easy to enjoy when they are full of football and the fridge is filled with beer. Here are the games we're locking in on, starting with the Lions, who are 3-point favorites at Dallas. Both teams play plenty of indoor games, so the point total at 52. That is the over-under in this game. Jay, are you back in on Jared Goff after a great game last week?
I am a little bit back in on Jared Goff. He's in the friendly comforts of a dome, which is very helpful for Goff, given that his splits, obviously, on the road are much, much worse. It seems like he found a rhythm. Goff has just been through these random stretches in the past couple of years where it's like he just forgets how to throw the football. Yeah. He did it around Thanksgiving last season, where that game we struggled against the Packers. Seemed to get right against the Seahawks, and now he gets a Cowboys game where this Cowboys defense, Micah Parsons is not expected to play, DeMarcus Lawrence on IR. They will get Deron Bland back, it looks like, but I don't think this Cowboys defense is nearly the threatening unit that it was last year.
Matthew, highest point total for the week. This one's at 52. Does it look like a shootout for both sides here?
Yeah, maybe. I'm just, I'm a little concerned. I'm a little concerned about Jared Goff this week, to your point. Jared, they want to run the ball. They're going to want to run the ball, right? The Cowboys have a top 10 pass defense. I think I might like the under in this game. Jay, the fact of the matter is that Dallas is top 10 pass defense. My expectation here is that Detroit is going to want to run the ball, right? Goff has one game this year, literally one game this year with more than 28 pass attempts. They're 30th, the Lions are, in pass rate. They're 24th in pass rate over expected. They want to grind this out, and especially on the road at Dallas, where I think you can run on the Cowboys for sure. That's a vulnerability to them. So I think that's what they're going to want to do. So I think slower pace of play here. I think the Cowboys offense has been hit or miss this year. Okay, they got it done at the end against Pittsburgh, but they also had some brutal turnovers there. And honestly, if Justin Fields could have made like a couple of basic third down throws, I think that game ends differently. So I don't know that this is, quote, a super shootout. I think you're starting all the obvious guys in this game that you normally would. You're starting my guy Yates and Jake Ferguson. I think you're starting Dak in this game. You're starting the running backs for the Lions. You're starting Amon-Ra and Sam Laporta. But Goff, to me, I'm at QB 16. I'm just a mid-tier QB2 this week.
Because of that, Matthew, are we not as confident in Jameson Williams, who you left out there?
Yeah, Jameson Williams is just so big play dependent. You know what I mean? It's just, we thought, this is the year of Jameson Williams there in week number 1, and just it hasn't been the same. So no, I'm not. I think Jameson Williams is kind of in that wide receiver 3-4 range where you're going to hope for one big play, which certainly has the opportunity to. But no, he's not somebody that I feel like is a must start this week.
Yeah, Jameson Williams, he's set at 3.5 receptions on DraftKings. The under is back to -125. I think, to your point, Matthew, about the Cowboys' pass defense, statistically it has been good. I think we're still just early enough in the season, though, where it gets so skewed by the bad quarterbacks that the team might have played. They played Deshaun Watson. They played Fields when Fields was really struggling. Daniel Jones. They made Derek Carr and the Saints look like the greatest show on turf, and we've seen how the Saints have struggled since then, although they have had injuries in the meantime. So I don't really know what to make of this Cowboys pass defense. I am pretty confident, though, that the rushing defense is bad, as it was last season. Matthew, what do you think about Jalen Tolbert?
I was just going to say real quickly, Jay, sorry, the last point on Jameson Williams, by the way, 12% target share over the last 2 weeks. He's on the hate list this week. I'm outside my top 35. I will tell you, if you are looking for some deep production in this game, how about Jalen Tolbert, who made my others receiving votes this week as well? He's had at least 13 fantasy points in 3 of the last 4 games. Detroit actually allows the second most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. We talked about him a little bit yesterday as well. So I actually think Jalen Tolbert is, if you're desperate, I think he's kind of interesting. Again, love-hate is always about expectations. I actually have both guys ranked around the same, Tolbert and Jameson Williams, but I would lower expectations for Williams in this one, and I'm more bullish on Tolbert than general expectations around Tolbert.
In a game that could have massive implications on the MVP race, the Commanders travel to Baltimore. The Ravens are favored by 7 points. The over-under is at 51.5. Matthew, during injuries, we talked a little bit about the status of Brian Robinson Jr. But let's say he does play, a game-time decision. Let's say he plays. Jay mentioned how tough Baltimore's defense is, but you made the counterpoint. This is a guy that could fall into the end zone, and with the threat of Jaden Daniels running, it feels like that opens up things for guys like Brian Robinson.
For sure. So, I mean, again, like I have him as a low-end RB2 because I think there's always a chance, again, if he plays, there's always a chance where he falls into the end zone. And he actually, he has almost a 10% target share, so they use him a little bit in the passing attack. But I do say, so Robinson is somebody that is just hard to get out of your lineup, but I would certainly lower expectations for Brian Robinson. Again, if he's out there, we'll know later today. We'll have a better sense of whether he can give it a go on Sunday against the Ravens. One person that I do think is a really interesting play this week, and that's Austin Eckler. Proud Fantasy Life investor, Austin Eckler, on the love list this week and others receiving votes. Remember, Austin Eckler very quietly has double-digit fantasy points in every game so far this season, and he actually leads all running backs in fantasy points per touch. When Austin Eckler touches the ball, good things happen, and the Ravens, for as good as a run defense they are, when they play opposing running backs, they're actually bottom 10 in terms of most receiving yards allowed to opposing running backs. So they're good up against the run, but they're not great when you throw to your running backs. And obviously, given the fact that the Commanders are almost a touchdown underdog here on the road at Baltimore, expect them to be in throwing script a little bit more often, which probably means more Austin Eckler in a good matchup against the Ravens.
Yeah, it is interesting this game, which is, blockbuster matchup between, I think, the two guys who would probably finish 1-2 in MVP through 5 weeks of the season. Total is 51.5. There's not actually that many fantasy viable guys in this matchup, like relative to that kind of total.
It's the quarterbacks.
It's the quarterbacks, and then it's Derrick Henry, obviously, but and then like Terry McLaurin, yes, Zay Flowers in the flex. But to give you an idea of how down bad Mark Andrews is, Mark Andrews' receiving prop is set at 24.5 receiving yards. That might be a touch high as well. I just think that he's struggling so much. Isaiah Likely's got the same number. Zach Ertz is in the same range. Zach Ertz's receiving prop is actually higher than Mark Andrews, which shows you how Mark Andrews has been doing so far. So yeah, this is a game that's going to be concentrated on the quarterbacks.
Our last game here, Sunday Night Football on NBC and Peacock. The Bengals are favored by 3.5 points as they travel to MetLife to take on the Giants. The over-under for this one, 47.5, so not as high as our previous two. But Jay, to counter your previous point about the last game, there are a lot of fantasy-relevant players in this game, even if Malik Neighbors does not play, which is looking very likely. Forget the fact Darius Slayton, who we saw what he did last week, but is Wan'Dale Robinson a strong play? If Neighbors somehow did suit up in this, but even without him, it feels like Wan'Dale's getting his targets.
Yeah, absolutely. I think regardless, Wan'Dale now, like Wan'Dale Robinson, he's had 47 targets through 5 games, so he's averaging over 9 targets per game. He has a very high floor. He has a connection with Daniel Jones. We've been waiting for this for a while from Wan'Dale. Now it seems like he's the guy. So yeah, I think Wan'Dale Robinson against the Cincinnati defense that is in the mix for being the worst in the NFL. Wan'Dale Robinson, I think, is someone you can very confidently start.
Matthew, it was great to see T. Higgins get on track, and just this offense as a whole through the air right now with Joe Burrow hasn't been great for the Bengals because of their defense, but it feels like we're back to having full confidence in this pass game, Burrow to support his 2 superstar receivers. You love the matchup with the Giants.
You love the matchup with the Giants. You love the talent, and I think to Jay's point, their defense is terrible. Right? I mean, there's a lot of things that work in Joe Burrow's favor. He's been nothing short of fantastic this entire first game. Okay, bad day at the office, but he's been one of the top 3 fantasy quarterbacks over the last 4 weeks. And T. Higgins looks fully back. Jamar Chase is Jamar Chase again, proud Fantasy Life investor Jamar Chase, along with Joe Burrow, both proud Fantasy Life investors. So, I think there's a very real scenario where Higgins and Chase both finish the week as top 10 fantasy wide receivers, and Burrow finishes the week as the number 1 quarterback in fantasy. That is within the range of outcomes. Can they block Dexter Lawrence? Can they get Burrow enough time? I think they can. Deontay Banks has been a disaster for the Giants and their secondary. I think full steam ahead, especially with, as we mentioned earlier in the show, the running game's a little bit banged up. So it's going to be all on Burrow's shoulders. The Giants' offense is getting better. Although, again, I don't think Malik Neighbors plays in this game. But still, Cincinnati is going to have to score to win this game. And so really like all the Cincinnati players, especially in the passing game. Andrei Yoshevich, suddenly if you're desperate. One last note as long as we're talking about this game. The same a little birdie that told me Malik Neighbors is definitely not playing this week also told me it's going to be a timeshare. It's going to be Devin Singletary and Tyrone Tracy. That Singletary's expected back this week, but Tyrone Tracy has earned more playing time, obviously, with his huge performance last week against Seattle and the upset win against the Seahawks. So I would expect kind of a fairly even split between those two running backs. And Connor, you and I have talked about this since the preseason. Tyrone Tracy's going to be a thing this year.
Yeah, he's just he's their most talented running back, and Giants fans got to see that last week. No coincidence they pull off an upset when Tyrone Tracy gets the start. So I'm with you, Matthew, all the way. I don't think Tyrone Tracy's going anywhere, even with Singletary back.
Interesting that Matthew also has a direct texting relationship with Brian Daboll as well. That's a new development. Yeah, interesting.
Well, you know what? He's one of the guys that also is always in first class all the time. You know what I mean? Like, you know, right.
I sat next to him the day after. He cost me a lot of money by winning Coach of the Year over Kyle Shanahan a couple years ago. Very familiar with Brian Daboll on planes, much to my chagrin, as 70 people walked by us congratulating Brian Daboll for winning Coach of the Year. It's one of the worst things that's ever
But you
happened
didn't?
to me.
Wait, Jay, did you?
No, I did. Yeah, I was the bigger man there, but it was through gritted teeth, and I was very upset.
Did you
he was
tell
also
him how much
lovely.
money
He was
you had
also,
lost?
he seemed like a really lovely person, which somehow made it all the worse.
Can I tell you a very quick Brian Daboll story?
Please.
Sure,
It's like,
go ahead.
very quick, but just I've written about this before, but like at the NFL Combine, what happens is that all the coaches and the general managers, they speak behind these big podiums, right? And then all the press is there like in front of the podiums, and they're sort of roped off, right? And when Joe Shane made his debut, obviously they came in together. Brian Daboll, and obviously people on the team can stand behind the podium and whatever, and it's just all sort of roped off. And Brian Daboll came and stood in the scrum with everyone else for Joe Shane's press conference, which I just thought was really cool. And I was just like, and I looked at him like, and I was just like, whoa, Coach Daboll. And he's just like, hey, what's up, Matthew? So anyway, I just thought, I thought that was just very cool. And just, talked to him for a little bit. And to your point, he's a really good dude. He's an easy guy to root for. I'll just tell you that.
That'll do it for What's on Tap, presented by Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. This Sunday night, don't miss Joe Burrow and the Bengals traveling east for a date with Dexter Lawrence and the New York Giants. Coverage of the matchup in the Meadowlands begins at 7 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.